This thing that I'm holding right here is a Nintendo Mini. This thing that I'm also holding is a Nintendo Mini. And this is me giving one of my Nintendo Minis to my dog. Come here, Lily. She doesn't care that much for it. Hi. Hi, no, Big Wolf, no! Anyways, hey, what's going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario. I found this topic to be a little bit interesting, so I wanted to talk about it here, but I'm talking about why I believe Nintendo ended up recycling the Nintendo Mini into the Super Nintendo Mini. Now, in case you don't know what these systems are, these systems retailed at least in US dollars. This was $60, and it came with one controller and 30 games preloaded onto it. And this thing right here is $80, came with two controllers and 21 games preloaded onto it. This one, of course, has 21 Super Nintendo games. This one has 30 Nintendo games on it. Now, the reason why I got interested in talking about this topic is because I had seen some reports shortly before this system came out where some tech-savvy people who got the system prior to launch had taken it apart, they had dumped the NAND on there. When I say dump the NAND, I mean they hooked it up to their computer and were able to dump the system software off it. They saw that the image that was on here that was written was just a modified version of the image that was on here, and on top of that, when it came to physical details, the board that is inside of this console is the exact same board as the one inside of this console. So why? Why is that? Why did Nintendo just recycle this system right here? Well, I have a few reasons as to why, and I want to talk about them on this. Now, these are my own reasons, my own assumptions, so to speak, and if you disagree with them or agree with them, or if you have some ideas of your own, drop them down below in the comments section. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into a few of them, and I have kind of 3 or 4 reasons right here. Now, this first reason I find interesting, and I did want to touch up on, and this is more specifically for the security of these two systems, because if you want to modify either of them, they are extremely easy to do, and the method is pretty much the same on them. And that reason that I believe is piracy. See, Nintendo really doesn't care about piracy on either of these systems. A lot of people, they were speculating and saying, oh, Nintendo's probably going to put in better security on this system, or I've even heard some people trying to say that Nintendo's going to remove the micro USB adapter on these systems, which I don't think they're going to. But a lot of people have been saying that Nintendo maybe even stopped selling the original NES because of piracy, but then we can do the same thing on the Super NES right here. So that's kind of null and void. When it comes to piracy, really Nintendo's not worried about it on these systems. Some people might try and clap back and say, well, there's clone consoles, or there's also other ways of getting the ROMs. Like you can go and you can mod these systems easily and you can pirate all of Nintendo's ROMs. That's going to hurt them. While I'm not going to downplay those facts, I will say that it's not going to affect these right here. Most of the people, first off, that were getting those clone consoles, because especially with the Nintendo right here, the Nintendo Mini, people that were getting the clone consoles were mostly getting them because they couldn't get a hold of the actual units, or they were just interested in the clone consoles. Because I had seen some good clones come out, and there really wasn't that big of a difference on them. I mean, granted, yeah, it didn't look as nice, but it functioned the same. It might have had a few glitches here and there, but even when it came to price, it's not like you were really saving a whole ton on there. They were selling clone systems of this for about $55, $60 when the system normally sells for $60. Of course, you know, right now they're not making these until summer of 2018, so if you want to get one right now, you will have to pay a scalper, or you'll have to get really lucky from somebody who wants to sell it to you at a proper price. The point being on there is, I don't think clones are really going to affect this market right here. And when it comes to ROMs, the reason why I say I don't think that ROM downloads are going to affect these systems is due to the fact that it would affect them if, let's say, you could hook these up to the internet and you can download other games directly from Nintendo, pay for them, do whatever you want to. But the fact is that you buy all the hardware and software together. Now, this might be an issue, as I said, if you're buying the software separately. Like the Dreamcast, for example. One of the reasons why it didn't do very well near the end was because very early on into its lifespan, it got cracked and you could easily play pirated games on there. And Sega was selling that at a loss. They were saying, we're going to just sell the system at a loss, we're going to be giving units out, so to speak, and we're going to make a lot of money off software sales. That didn't really happen for a multitude of reasons, one of them being piracy, I believe. Now, when it comes to this right here, there's only 30 games available for it. You buy the 30 games with the system. Same thing with the Super Nintendo. There's 21 games available for it. You get those games with the system. I cannot go out and buy other software for this system. The only way I would have to add extra software on here or modify it is to literally mod the system, which is not going to be supported by Nintendo. But from what Nintendo is offering, they're not offering extra software to put on these systems. They're not offering any other bundles that have different games unless you go to different regions and different territories. But the point is, on there, when it comes to piracy, I really don't think that's going to be a factor in the sales or the security of these two systems, because as I said, Nintendo has 30 games to sell or 21 games to sell, and they've already done so by getting the console into your home, so the lack of software really doesn't mean that much to them. Now, the second point I want to make, which is actually directly related to sales, is I don't believe that this system is going to cannibalize any other things that they have. So for example, the Switch, anything on Virtual Console, and really the 3DS. I kind of lumped that in there, but I'll just say Switch and Virtual Console sales. And Virtual Console means any type of Nintendo system that has a Virtual Console on it of some kind. Right now, at this point, you can't get older ROMs on the Switch. Like you can't get N64 games, Game Boy Color games, whatever it is. That's why I'm putting that into a separate category. But what I'm trying to say on here is people who are buying these mini or these classic systems are not the people who are saying, oh, well, I'm not going to buy these systems because I can just get them all on Virtual Console. Or, hey, I bought this system right here, so therefore I don't need to buy the games on Virtual Console. Those, believe it or not, are two separate groups of people. And then on top of that, because, you know, the main things that Nintendo is selling right now, they're selling these classics whenever they can. They're selling the Switch, and they're selling the 3DS. And none of those markets really overlap with each other. The reason why, for example, that they are still selling the 3DS is because there's a lot of games that are coming out on it that are not available on the Switch. Maybe not yet, we'll see, but this is a system that they're still supporting because there are people that are still buying it. That's also why they released the 2DS XL. I'm not a big fan of them releasing another variant of the console that late into its lifespan, but Nintendo has seen enough sales and enough support on that platform that they say, you know what, we can throw another system in there. We can throw another variant in there, that's fine. And they still see reason to keep making games for it. Plus, that is a different market. That is handheld market versus console market. Switch being in the console market, and then 3DS being in the handheld market. A different thing here would be maybe if we're saying, hey, let's look at the Switch versus the Wii U. Those are both consoles right there. They're trying to go after the same market, and on top of that, Nintendo has started porting Wii U games over to the Switch. So therefore, it wouldn't make much sense for them to be supporting the Wii U, especially when it didn't have the best support to begin with, and it just didn't have the stable base there. But that's why you really just gotta segment it out and see that the classic systems, or these all-in-one boxes, whatever it might be, just a system where you buy it and it comes preloaded with a bunch of ROMs on it that have been licensed by the company officially, that's a completely different market than handheld, or Virtual Console download, or regular consoles. The third reason here is pretty simple. Why should they make a new system when the old system works just fine? And I'm not talking about, hey, upgrading from an 8-bit system to a 16-bit system. I'm not talking about like going from the 80s to the 90s, where some people who had the Nintendo, like the original system, the one that actually loaded cartridges, they said, hey, this is fine for me, I don't need this 16-bit mess right here. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about they were able to literally take the board out of this system and see, hey, it performs perfectly fine with 16-bit games. We can get this working. If we can just get it working with some software tweaks, why do we need to design a new board for this? Couple in the fact that they're really not caring about the security on here at the same time. If the board is perfectly capable, that's not money that they need to spend on a board revision. There's no reason for them to do that unless they're still trying to cut corners and bring down the cost. And if it got to the point where they could see, hey, we could spend 5 cents less per board if we end up changing this and still get the same quality and results that we need, they would probably do that. But honestly, I don't think they're really caring here on these two systems. So again, if they could take the Nintendo board and play Super Nintendo games on it perfectly well, why do they need to upgrade? Why do they need to change? Now, the last reason I thought of, which I actually had these all typed up, and then this fourth reason just came to mind while I was recording the video here, is really profits when it comes down to it. I've been talking about money throughout this whole video, but they can segment these out as well too. Now that we've proven, it's been proven by Nintendo themselves, that this thing can handle Super Nintendo games, why didn't they just release an all-in-one system that could do Nintendo and Super Nintendo games? Easy. Profit. Money. If they can take this thing, do a few modifications on it, and resell it to you at a higher price, why shouldn't they do it? It's capitalism right there. It's money to be made. They are a business. That's what they're doing. Can't say that myself, this is not something that I fully agree with, but looking at it from a business mindset, I said, you know what? I could see why they're doing that. And on top of that as well too, I'm sure this is capable of doing other things, maybe doing some more powerful emulation. It's kind of been proven too with people who have modified the system. They're able to play some N64 games, some PS1 games on there as well too, using RetroArch. So the first thing that came to mind was, well, we are probably going to see a N64 Mini come out in about a year, and it's probably going to use the same board with maybe a few modifications on there. N64 emulation is tricky, so they will probably, it wouldn't surprise me if they have to do a few physical modifications or do a bit of an upgrade on there. But don't discount it, it will probably happen. Anyways, let me know your thoughts on this. Do you agree with my statements? Do you have anything to add? Do you completely disagree with me? What are your thoughts on it overall? And also, did you pick up any of these systems? I picked up both of them. That's another thing as well too, I do kind of want to mention. Throughout this, I've kind of had this, I feel like, negative inflection towards these systems. I think they're cool. I have actually been in support of them. And even though I've talked, talked about why they might be ripoffs and why they might be unfair to consumers, you know what, at the same time, since it is capitalism, since it is a business, if they put this thing out and people want to buy it, they're going to keep making them. Well, maybe. We kind of realize that they stopped making these early on, but they're coming back. Anyways, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like very much be appreciated, and if you absolutely hated it, a dislike is fine as well too.